Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamish Orr, and welcome back to something I like to call Stories from the Maelstrom, a recap of the day's games for this past week of real time. All right, so we're dealing with May 6th now. It's the fifth day after the All Star break, I believe. And first, we head over to New York as the Boston Splinters were coming to face the New York Swats in New York. And this was kind of a pitcher's duel at the beginning. Nolan Ryan on the mound for the New York Swats facing off against Jim Palmer. Palmer had gotten knocked out in the first inning in his last outing for Boston. Um, he couldn't record an out in the first inning, and they batted around against him, and so he was pulled. And so here he is a few days later. He gets a chance to kind of redeem himself, and he does redeem himself. He had a strong performance, a strong showing here. He did allow an RBI single to Wade Boggs in the bottom of the third. Um, but Nolan Ryan actually kept the Boston Splinters scoreless until the seventh inning when they were able to put together a couple of RBI doubles. Tony Oliva had an RBI double there in the seventh, and then Frank Thomas drove in two more runs to put Boston on top 3-1 at that point. With Palmer still in, New York was able to get one of those runs back on a Ty Cobb RBI single, scoring Roberto Alomar. So with the game 3-2, we headed into the eighth inning, and Nolan Ryan was able to hold Boston scoreless in the eighth. So Ryan had 8 innings pitched, only allowed 4 hits, 6 walks though, of course. I say of course because he tends to not have great control. He did strike out 9 though, but he allowed those 3 earned runs, and Jim Palmer allowed only 2 earned runs. In the bottom of the eighth, Palmer was tiring, and Red Ruffing came in to relieve him, and unfortunately, Red Ruffing had a rough outing. Wade Boggs and Lou Boudreau both singled, and then Babe Ruth had a 2 RBI double after striking out his first 3 times against Jim Palmer. He comes in clutch there with a run-scoring double to put New York on top, and then they added another run when Ken Griffey Jr. singled home Babe Ruth, the very next batter. All in all, Ruffing allowed three runs there in the eighth to put New York up 5-3, and Satchel Paige came in the ninth, and it was kind of touch and go there for a minute. As Ricky Henderson hit a leadoff double. Tony Oliva grounded out to third, to Wade Boggs playing third there, but Ted Williams drove in Ricky with an RBI single. Frank Thomas followed with another single to put the tying run on second base, but Lou Gehrig flew out to shallow left, Babe Ruth there in left field, and Carlton Fisk struck out to end the game. So New York takes this one 5-4 to improve to 13-18. Boston falls to 17-13 in this one. Satchel Paige picks up his 5th save. Nolan Ryan his 4th win, just by the benefit of sticking in there when Red Ruffing blew that save for the Boston Splinters. Next, we head to St. Louis, where the LA Dynamos were facing off against the St. Louis Wizards. And this is a lefty duel between Sandy Koufax and Steve Carlton. Both pitchers allowing just 1 earned run early on. LA hits, Johnny Mize hits a solo shot against Steve Carlton in the second inning, which is about all they could get off of him. Meanwhile, St. Louis scores a run in the bottom of the third. Oscar Charleston hits an RBI single, scoring Pee Wee Reese to tie things up in the third inning. But again, both pitchers, both starters, going deep into this one. In the seventh inning, and this was the deciding factor here. There in the seventh inning, Tony Perez grounded out to short. Jackie Robinson was able to walk and stole second, or tried to steal second. He was beat by the throw, but Rogers Hornsby couldn't hold on to it, and the throw would have put him out there at second base. Instead, with Hornsby failing to hold on to that one. Robinson was there on second base, and a couple of batters later, Frank Robinson hit an RBI single to score the second run for LA, and that was all they would need. They take this one 2-1 actually. Koufax, 8 innings pitched, 7 hits, only 1 earned run, and struck out 7. And meanwhile, Steve Carlton, 8 innings pitched also. He only allowed 4 hits in this one. 2 runs. One of them was unearned because of that error. And the ninth inning saw 2 great relief performances. Warren Spahn had a 1-2-3 inning for the St. Louis Wizards. And Goose Gossage comes in the bottom of the ninth and strikes out all 3 batters that he faced in the bottom of the ninth to give LA the 2-1 win in this one. LA improves to 17-14, and St. Louis loses again. They're 22-9, still a league best record. Next up, we head to Oakland, where the Detroit Rockets were facing off against the Oakland Jacks. We have Dave Stieb and Bert Blyleven in this one. Stieb has came into this one with only a few starts under his belt. He's the number 5 starter for Detroit, and because of pitcher rest and all of that fun stuff, he hasn't really had to start too many games, which is good because he's been pretty bad so far this season. Bert Blyleven, on the other hand, one of the better ERAs in the league. And this one was another close one. Detroit got on the board early in the 3rd inning with an RBI ground out by Ichiro, put them up 1-0. And then in the 6th, Alex Rodriguez hit his 10th home run to give Detroit the 2-0 lead. Now, Oakland would get one back in the bottom of the 6th when Manny Minoso hit an RBI double, scoring Joe DiMaggio. So they would be down only 2-1 at that point. Then in the 8th, Ichiro, who came into this game with an 18-game hitting streak, had been retired his first 3 at-bats, singled in the 8th inning to lead off the 8th inning to extend his hitting streak to 19 games. And that single would end up being pretty clutch because Alex Rodriguez and Dick Allen would strike out. And that is an unearned. That should have been an unearned run there. Adrian Beltre grounded to George Brett there, who bobbled it to extend the inning, and Charlie Blackwell singled him home there in the 8th inning to put Detroit up 3-1 at that point. George Brett would make up for his misplay by hitting a solo shot in the bottom of the 8th, but unfortunately, Detroit still had the 3-2 lead. Bullet Rogan came in the 9th, and he allowed 3 runs to extend the Detroit lead, 6-2 at that point. They would get one back in the bottom of the inning, but that was it. So Detroit wins this one 6-3. Steve gets his first win of the season. He allowed just 2 earned runs in 8 innings pitched. Bert Blyleven allowed just 3, of course 10 hits though, as Detroit had 15 hits in this one. Charlie Blackwell was 4 for 5 to improve his average to 354. So Detroit is 17-14, and Oakland falls to 14-16 with the loss. Finally, we head over to Houston as the Chicago Docs faced off against the Houston Hoots. And this one was not a pitcher's duel by any means. Burley Grimes pitching for the Houston Hoots in his first start after relieving the first half of the season. He gets put into the starting rotation here. And he was in trouble in the very first inning even. But he was able to get out of it with just a single run scored, thanks to an RBI single by Bobby Bonds. Houston would get that run back in the bottom of the 2nd, thanks to a Hank Aaron home run off of Curt Schilling. Schilling having trouble allowing quite a few home runs this season, and that continued. That bad luck continued in this game. He allowed that solo shot to Hank Aaron, and then in the bottom of the fourth, Hank Aaron hit his second homer of the day, a 3-run homer in the fourth, followed by immediately Mike Schmidt hitting another home run. They go back to back there in the fourth inning, putting Houston up 5-1 at that point. Now Houston did get a couple runs back thanks to an Albert Pujols RBI double, scoring 2 to cut the lead to 5-3. But then in the sixth, Mike Schmidt hit his second home run of the game, a 2-run homer that extended Houston's lead again to 7-3 at that point. Again, a little bit of a back and forth game as Chicago scored 2 runs in the in the top of the seventh. Jeff Kent hit an RBI single, scoring 2 runs actually, to cut the lead again, this time to 7-5. But Jim Jeffries comes in in relief for the Chicago Docs, and he allows 2 runs in the bottom of the seventh for Houston to get that lead, extend that lead right back to 4 runs. They take this one 9-5. Burley Grimes picks up his second win. He's now 2-0 this season. He did allow 5 earned runs in 8 innings, but Kurt Schilling allowed 7 earned runs over 6 innings. 4 of those were home runs. Four home runs contributed to those runs. All in all, Chicago falls to 10-21, the worst record in the league. Houston improves to 13-18. Neither team very good, but Houston has just a little bit of an edge in this one. And so if we head over to the standings, we can see that Detroit, thanks to their win, has cut Boston's lead in the American League to just half a game. Just half a game over Detroit now. So the American League is shaping up to be very close. Even New York, last place team, is only 4.5 games out. Meanwhile, in the National League, St. Louis did lose, but still has a 5-game lead over LA. And Chicago, who's in the cellar in the National League, is 12 games out and will have to do something miraculous in order to cut that lead. They've now lost 3 straight. So next up are the second game of a 2-game series between these teams, May 7th, and we're well on our way to the end of the season here. So it looks like American League is pretty competitive compared to the National League. By the way, if you're wondering, there is one other player, a National League player, that has an 18-game hitting streak going right now, and that's Joe Morgan, who did not play today in today's games, but for the LA Dynamos. But he should be back in the May 7th game to have another shot at extending his hitting streak. So that kind of wraps up the summary of today's games. Thank you so much for coming by. As always, you can head over to baseballmaelstrom.com to catch up on the action, to see all the stats, all the players, a little write-up on each game as I play it. And you can see the past write-ups here, and everything else you may want to see about the league. Extensive stats thanks to Ball Stat and Ball Score. And if you want to catch up on the All-Star game that happened a couple weeks ago, you can get that box score here. See that box score and score sheet right there. With all that said, I appreciate you coming by and watching. And until next time, have a great evening.